All right, we are live. Tapping Birdie, Genesis Scottish Open Week plus the Isco. Here with the first time TIB guest, Martin Mathews on X, also known as Sundog Monkey. Martin, I felt like this was the perfect week to have you on, so I'm glad you could make it and we figured out a time.
Brian, I'm delighted to be here, and thank you so much for inviting me. I'm honoured to follow in the footsteps of some great luminaries who've been here before me. So yeah, it's fantastic to be on, and yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time. So I'm really looking forward to it.
So where does a week like this rank for you on the PGA Tour? You know, we all know you love your alternate field events on tour. You are in person at Myrtle Beach, and then we also get the start of links golf at the Scottish this week. So you know, we got two great events. Is this top five on the PGA Tour for you, or what?
It's certainly a double bubble, as we say over here. So yeah, it's like you say, ever since they brought in the sort of what's the word? The phrase I'm looking for, the partnership alliance or the strategic alliance. So now we've got obviously players from the DP World Tour who haven't quite made it into this week's field or next can hop over to Kentucky and obviously the PGA Tour guys over in the UK. Yeah, it's a fascinating couple of events. So I mean, we'll come on to the Isco in a bit, and that's obviously a little bit of a challenge for us this week with a new course. But
New
I would
course.
say with the build up to next week. Top five slash borderline. Well, definitely top 10, but edging on the top five. But yeah, it's a great week. I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, no, we're glad to have you on, obviously. So I know earlier this year you're obviously a bloke from the UK, but you make it over to the US a couple times a year to go to Sawgrass, Valspar, Myrtle Beach. What is it? I have to ask you, what is it like going to an alternate field event in person? How empty is it? How close can you get to the guys? Like, what is it like for you going to these alternate field events?
Well, that was the first alternate field event I've been to in Myrtle
Okay.
Beach, to be fair. But it was a really interesting experience actually, and I think I mean I know because it was the second year they had Myrtle Beach, and I know talking to people last year was really well attended, and you know you were struggling to see things just as you might be at any PGA Tour event if you're following the marquee groups inverted commas. But this year they were a little bit hit by the weather. I don't know if you remember watching it, and I mean I thought I was coming over to the States to get away for some English weather, and it was 75 degrees back in England and wall to wall sunshine, and while it was warmer in Myrtle Beach, it was absolutely hammering it down. So that obviously kept the crowds away, particularly on the Saturday. It was you know I got absolutely soaked on the Saturday, but it was good fun and it was a really good experience. I mean, I guess I mean we can talk about the golf, and obviously it was a great tournament, great finish with Ryan Fox chipping in the playoff to win. But I guess the only grumble I would have is that I don't know whether it's a local thing on a PGA Tour thing, but because maybe it's an opposite field event, maybe they feel they don't have to sort of go to town as much with the sort of food on the course or the
Okay.
facilities or anything like that. So I would say it was definitely opposite field from the point of view of the sort of food compared to what you might get on you know a regular PGA Tour event and general facilities around the course. So on a very practical level, but the crowds were good. On Sunday when the weather was a lot better, the crowds came out, and yeah, so it was a really good experience, and I'd certainly recommend it. And yeah, I really enjoyed. I mean, despite getting drenched in the rain on Saturday, I really enjoyed going. So that was fantastic.
Your content that week was amazing. I vividly remember it. You're following the most random groups. I'm like, this is awesome. Like I know you usually make a trip over. I think you're
Yeah,
at TPC
yeah,
Sawgrass and a
that's
bunch of
right.
other.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, there's really nothing better than sweating a golf bet in person and following a
Yeah,
group that you have action on and you are living and dying with every single shot in person. It's a great
I've
experience.
done it. I know because yeah, you was it lot was it this weekend just gone you were there? Or was it the weekend before? I know you've been out on an event within the last
No,
couple of weeks.
I
But
was
you were there
at
when you.
I was at the Truist in
Truist, right?
Philly,
Yeah,
which was the same
yeah.
week. And then I usually go to the Travelers. That's
Mm,
closest to me on the East Coast.
mm,
But I didn't make it this year. But it is tougher, like, and that's why I'm curious by the alternate field events, because it is tougher to follow like the marquee final group on a
yeah,
Sunday in a big event if you really want to see golf shots be hit and really, go with the flow of the group. And I
yeah.
have to rush ahead and try and find a good spot and look over people. So, there's nothing better than following a lower followed group where you have money on it.
Yeah.
It's always a great
Yeah, I
experience.
remember because you're right. Obviously, I've been to a few events around Florida and what have you, and I remember I can't remember exactly which year it was, and if I try and get the exact year, then I'll probably be wrong, and someone will call me up on it, as it were. But it was only 3-4 years ago, post COVID, certainly I'd say, when Tiger played an event. And it was one of his first events back, and it was I don't know, I can't remember which event it was, but he played in an event over in Florida way. Bay Hill will be the obvious one that springs to mind. And Basically everyone followed Tiger. So on the Sunday, and he was, and he played reasonably well. He wasn't really in contention to win, but I think he had a little bit of a run. And
Was it
on the Sunday,
Valspar?
yeah, possibly did he play the Valspar?
I think he did. I remember one of the years Paul Casey won, Tiger made a charge on Sunday, but I don't
Yeah,
know if
maybe it was,
that was it.
but anyway, whatever the event it was, Tiger was playing, and I was able to follow sort of the leaders, which included sort of two big names, marquee elite players, and I was able to walk around and watch them, but because everyone
Yeah.
was like watching Tiger's group. But I know exactly one, because obviously the week after I went to Myrtle Beach, I went to Quail Hollow for the PGA Championship, so that was complete opposite spectrum from the Myrtle Beach trip.
Definitely.
And of course on the Sunday you couldn't get near anyone at
Yeah.
Quail Hollow of any sort of the last 2 or 3 groups. It was absolute sort of 50 deep sort of thing. So if you wanted to watch Scotty or whatever on the Sunday, you'd have had no chance. So then I don't remember, I actually followed on the Sunday, but someone who had a bet on was hoping would sneak a place or something like that.
Yes.
So
Always looking for
but
those places on Sunday. That's always the best part of Twitter on Sunday is the blokes from
yeah.
overseas missed the place by one. We need the full
Oh,
place.
okay. Well, like
That's
that week, I had and I'm paying for it now. The last few weeks, because you know what it's like with this sort of, you get a run of where everything seems to go your way, and then you get a run of about a month or two where just nothing goes your way. Well, around that time, I was on a run where everything was going my way, and it looked like I was going to have a bad week. And then up pops Harris English with his
Harris
65 on the
English.
Sunday or something to 150 to 1 to come. And I remember I was watching the big scoreboard, and I'd seen from my phone that he had 25 foot for birdie at the last or something, and then the big scoreboard comes up, the electronic scoreboard, to show that he'd hold it, and that basically got him out of the log jam of 7th into
Yeah.
2nd or
Yeah,
whatever.
I
So
can't
yeah.
remember someone having a runner up in a major where we saw less of their shots. And I think
Mm,
Harris English probably takes the cake for that. Like one of just the most random out of nowhere in terms of the actual tournament that week. Harris English was
mm.
never in the conversation and
Yeah,
he somehow
yeah.
finishes runner up.
But
So
he played great golf that week. He
yeah.
just made some ridiculous mistakes along the way. But yeah, but all was well in the end.
Well, I'm glad he got the full place for you. I was rooting for you there. So, Martin, there are a lot of people that bet golf on Twitter. Some people might think, I have been doing this for a while, or that, people that did it before COVID have been doing it a while. But I believe that you have truly been doing it for a while. So, when would you say you started betting on golf on a week to week basis? What tournaments were you betting on? What guys were you, backing with your tips? Like, how long have you been doing this for? Because
Well,
there's been a big influx recently, but you're a true OG in that sense.
Well, I guess there's different stages. So if the question is how long have I been having a bet on golf, I mean, without sort of giving my age away, I was young enough to see Oasis when they were playing early in the '90s and that kind of thing. So or old enough, I should say. So I've got a few years on you, Brian. Suffice to say. So back in the day, I mean, I can remember doing golf betting when I'll tell you a bit of a funny story. So we're probably going back to the beginning of the 90s. And I knew another guy who did the same thing. And he used to ring up the golf course on a Thursday lunchtime from England. And he would ring up the golf course. So our time, sort of lunchtime, morning time, your time. And he'd ring up, let's say, I don't know, the Copperhead course, or wherever it might be. And he'd ring them up about 2:00 in the afternoon our time. So play had been going on for about 2 hours. And he'd ring them up and say, "Oh, can you give me the leaderboard, please?" over the telephone, because there was nothing online or what have you. And they'd say, I don't know, Tim Heron's sort of two under through 4, and he's in the lead, and he'd get the leaderboard. And then he'd get to the bookies and get a bet on, because they hadn't stopped the odds. And so he'd just try and get a little edge.
That's amazing.
On whoever. And of course, nothing, by the time Tim Heron or whoever it was had finished his round, he'd have shot over par or something, or not. But he was just trying to get an edge on the bookies. So that will tell you how long I've been doing it, just as a, having a bet on it, as it were. But I guess when I started getting really serious about it and keeping stats and, not just having a random bet and etc., would have been, I guess, about... let me think about it. It's about 2010 or something like that, or 2008, or
the
when
true
I really started
dog days of the PGA Tour. That 2009 to 2012, there's no Tiger. I mean, you look at that 2011 PGA Tour season, the major winners from that year. I mean, there was a big void in golf. There were not a lot of superstars kind of in that 09 to 2012 range. It was definitely a weird era in golf.
But the first time I ever went to a golf tournament in the States, and that was what got me sort of completely hooked on the trip overseas, was me and a good friend of mine. We went over, and again, I'll probably get the year wrong, but 2006 possibly. We went to Sawgrass and we backed Stephen Ames at 125 to 1, and he won, and it basically paid for the whole trip. So then I was completely hooked on trips out to America from there on in.
So was that the year that he lost earlier in the year to Tiger 9 and 8?
I'm not sure if that was the same year or not.
Okay, because I remember that the Stephen Ames, like everyone loves to talk about how Tiger beat him 9 and 8 after Stephen Ames talked badly about him. But from my memory, he won the Players that year, so he kind of gave the middle finger to everyone that made fun of him. But no, that's great. What do you think about how many, tipsters and golf people that put out their plays on Twitter? I think it's it's a lot of fun to bet on golf, and it's a lot of fun to make your card, and it's a lot of fun to pick a couple guys. Like so you could see why it's become, even though it's a small corner of the internet, why it's become very popular.
Yeah, I think it's great, and there's room for plenty of people. I'm certainly not snobbish about it, and it's not like, there's enough people doing this. I think the important thing is, if you're a punter and you're going to start following someone, you've obviously got to be discerning and look at the people who keep their records and their data and publish their stuff and what have you, because it is obviously a long haul. And you can go through, periods of nothing for 3 months or something, and then suddenly everything turns around for you. And as well as I do, you get that one decent winner. I mean, last year was an example of that for me, really, because last year, to be honest, as a whole, was pretty rotten. But I picked up a few places here and there, and then I had the one big week where I had Davis Riley at 200 to 1 in the Charles Schwab. And that sort of covered over the cracks very nicely. But that's all you need, and that's the beauty of golf, really. If anyone, and I think I put this on Twitter last night, or X it's called these days, whilst I was never, I'm not going to claim to have ever been anywhere near to thinking about backing him, you could have looked at Brian Campbell and gone,
had some hometown ties.
He went to college in Illinois. He got a start in the event when he was back on the Corn Ferry way back when, and finished top 20. So he obviously knew the course. And when he won in Mexico, he'd been playing rubbish beforehand. So he's one of those players who can just pop up out of nowhere. But and I believe he was 300 to 1 plus or something. So you could. So I'm sure someone somewhere saw that case. And
I saw some tickets on him. I saw some tickets on him. Honestly, I think a lot of people, I think even after Mexico, he was not a popular pick, but after he won Mexico, people were like, this guy's still 200, 300 to 1, like elite wedge player, really good wood player, very accurate off the tee, great putter. Like, oh, I'll give him a shot. And I mean, it's just truly unbelievable where we live in a world where he is a 2-time PGA Tour winner in the same season. Like, two guys can, win twice and over a career, and that would be unbelievable. But for him to do it in like a 5-month stretch at 2 completely different golf courses, I mean, there might be some similarity somewhere, but it's just unbelievably impressive for a guy that has never even won on the Corn Ferry Tour, if I'm not mistaken. This is not a prolific winner by any means. And then you look at, I think the most unique thing about him is that he literally, I always say literally, but he literally is the shortest player off the tee on the entire PGA Tour by a decent margin. It's like most the guys that are really low are kind of in that 282 to 285, and I think he's like 276. So what he's able to do with how short he is off the tee is unbelievable. And we get very caught up in, you need distance to contend here, you need distance to win a major. What he's doing is just extremely impressive, I have to say.
Yeah, well, I was, I mean, this weekend just gone brought back some painful memories because they kept showing his carve out into the trees in the
Yes.
playoff at in Mexico, and I don't know if you remember, I was on Pojita that week,
Yes.
Pojita, so I was when that tee shot started carving into the trees. I thought, right, we've won, that's it, and then the ball comes careering back out into the middle of the fairway, and the rest was history, obviously. So yeah, I remember that first playoff only too well, unfortunately. So yeah, and coming back to Myrtle Beach, I mean, that was great to be able to watch and follow. Even though he didn't do any good from my bet point of view, to watch Aldrich, who's obviously a superstar, absolute star in the making, and I got to walk around and watch him swing it and hit it, a country mile and do his thing and what have you, with in front of about 6 people or something watching. So yeah, and I think also I followed. I remember posting this on Twitter that week. I backed Davis Riley.
Yes.
And I followed him around, and there was literally me and who I assume was Davis Riley's girlfriend, wife, or whatever. Literally the only 2 people following the group. He misses the cut, and the next week he's contending to win a major. But yeah, so
he's
that's
an
one for
interesting
you.
one to figure out as well. There are certain guys, Davis Riley, Cam Champ, now Brian Campbell. They might not be great at golf week to week, but once they are able to put themselves in the mix somehow, they can do a good job. And for whatever reason, the people around them tend to play worse, or what it is. I mean, I don't think we're that far removed from Davis Riley literally playing in the final group with Scotty Scheffler, who's no one has been able to stop over the past 3 years, and beat him. I mean, it's just unbelievable what some of these guys are able to do when, the likes of, Colin Morikawa, Patrick Cantlay, Tommy Fleetwood, Cam Young, Denny McCarthy, like these guys haven't won in forever. And I don't necessarily like the excuse where I see brought up, oh, well, if Tommy Fleetwood, played in these, weak events, like he would win. I don't know if that is the case. It's extremely hard to win on these courses and on any place on the PGA Tour. Denny McCarthy, he plays the John Deere Classic every year. Like, he can't get a win here. Cam Young, he played this event last year. He didn't win. It's not just that easy to just go out and win. So I don't think it's an excuse for some of these guys. Well, oh, they only play elevated events and, everything like that, where we know golf just doesn't really work that way.
Yeah. Well, it brings a different type of pressure, doesn't it? If hypothetically Tommy had teed it up at TPC Deer Run, it'd have been the 12-1 favourite or whatever, and it brings that pressure of expectation. So is he more likely to win in a field like that, which doesn't have Scotty Scheffler, etc. in it? Then yeah, of course he is. And if he was playing fields like that week in, week out, and playing all the fall events and what have you, then he probably would pick one off eventually. But as a one-off, yeah, I get your point that if he just decides, oh, I'm going to go and play TPC Deer Run just to look to get that win. He's putting a lot of pressure on himself, and there's a good chance someone pops up and beats him. Absolutely,
yeah. Definitely. So before we get into the odds board for the two events this week, got to shout out ISN. We'd love to have you join for the Open Championship. We're doing a free run. You'll have access to everything. We do the Discord, the articles, the premium show. So we'd love to have you over at ISN for the Open Championship week. This is, Portrush is not of course we know, not everyone knows in and out, but, we'll be grinding and making sure we have that course known. And I think it will be an unbelievable 2 weeks overseas, first in Scotland and first in Ireland. So this used to be a DP World Tour event, and it has been on the PGA Tour for the past 3 years. We have Xander winning, Rory winning, Bob Mack winning, all guys with really good links experience. Xander has a good Open Championship record. Rory is an Open champion. Bob Mack, obviously, made his hay on the DP World Tour. What are the key things you're kind of looking for this week at the Renaissance Club, to find guys you want to pick?
I think it's always tempting in an event like this to sort of gravitate towards, because there's some really fancy prices about, your steady week in, week out DP World Tour players. It's always tempting to sort of look at someone in the betting at sort of 200 to 1 who's been playing solidly on the DP World Tour, has a bit of links form or whatever, and to jump on them. But as I think I've seen a few people say today, ultimately this leaderboard is going to be probably stacked predominantly with PGA Tour pedigree players. I think in answer to questions, what type of player we're looking for. Obviously, as in all weeks, approach play is going to be key. But I think this week, I don't know if you've looked at our weather forecast, but unless anything unexpected comes up, and next week as well, I would say this as well, early forecast for Portrush, you're not going to see your typical horrendous squalls and rains. You probably saw more rain at the John Deere Classic last week than you'll see in the next 2 weeks, as the forecasts are looking at the moment. So
you think we could get a firmer Portrush?
We could do by next week, yeah, absolutely, yeah. But and I haven't, to be honest, I haven't looked for what the wind, forecast is for Portrush next week. So, and of course, if we get firm and windy, then that obviously is going to make for a fascinating and tough challenge. But with regards to this week, I think there's not too much. There'll always be a little bit of breeze around, obviously on the coast, but we're not expecting 30-mile-an-hour winds or anything like that. So I think we could almost end up with a bit of a putting contest this week. To be honest, I think the scoring will be pretty good. So as a whole, and I have got one exception in particular in my team to this, but as a whole, I'm looking for people who are pretty strong on the greens as a whole. Or certainly that gives a couple, 2 or 3 of my guys are pretty strong in that department anyway. So I'd be looking for good short game putting, and obviously a usual approach play. But I wouldn't. I mean, it's what's called a faux links course, really, the Renaissance course. So it's not obviously a natural, over the ages and Andrews type course. It's a Tom Doak man-made to try and create a link style, course. So but I don't think you're going to see guys struggling in the wind and the rain this week. So yeah.
Okay, well that's good. I don't want to get in trouble with Scotland again like I did last year. I hope they have great weather. I heard Scotland's beautiful this time of year. It's a great country. Would love to visit it one day, but I don't want to get in trouble again. So are you scared of Scotty this week? I know he hasn't, he won obviously the Olympics last year, but doesn't have a crazy wide range of success overseas at this event. He didn't even play it last year. His Open record is definitely his poorest of the 3 majors that he's been in. The books are kind of pushing his price up a little bit. I think a lot of people are going to kind of take Scotty on this week. I personally think that when he gets on, he doesn't necessarily putt well overseas on these perfectly manicured TPC greens. You're not going to have that this week. You're not going to have it next week. So I'm not too scared of Scotty this week. No. I'll put my name out. I don't think he's going to win. I feel decently confident about that.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% there, Brian. Obviously, can he win? Of course he can, because he's Scotty. But no, I think the interesting thing about these weeks before majors is that with a couple of notable exceptions over the years, and Phil always used to be this type of player, and now Rory is as well.
Yes.
The big guns don't want to peak a week too early. As I say, Rory's not afraid of winning back to back to back, as it were. But Scotty's yet to sort of win an event. Actually, no, I'll stand corrected. Did he win? Did he win Memorial last year? And that was directly before. Yeah, of course, he won Memorial last year, and that was directly before the US Open. And obviously, as a signature event, then there's a bit more motivation to try and win those. But as a whole, you'll tend to find that these events a week before the majors are won by, good quality players, but players who aren't necessarily someone you'd be thinking is going to win the major. Even when Xander won here a couple of years ago, he just won for the first time in ages at the Travelers, and he was on that little bit of a tear. So I think there's players, and Morikawa, someone I'm sure we'll talk about more. There's players who've got the motivation to get a win this week, whereas I expect Scotty just to be trying to tune up and, after a couple of weeks off, get a bit of, of a Links feel into him, as it were. So no, I'm not. He could win, of course he could, but I'm not scared of him this week.
Think I'm with you there. I'm happy that we're no longer in Scotty season. I'm sure I'll pick up a win before the end of the year, but I feel okay dodging him this week. Rory, the play was really poor from him for a while, and he really turned it around at the Travelers. Had a solid week there, was half in contention for it. He's been unbelievable at this course. He's won here again with that beautiful 5-iron he hit 2 years ago to break Bob Mack's heart. I think he's going to be dangerous this week. Obviously has an elite driver putter kind of combo. I don't know where his head's at. I think historically it takes guys a really long time to win after they win the Masters. People don't win the Masters and win a bunch of events after that unless your name is Scotty Scheffler. But historically, I don't care who you are. It takes a while to win after the Masters. So I'm fine kind of missing Rory for a bit and not betting him, just because I think it takes a little bit of time after you get it done at Augusta. Are you surprised to see Tommy like third, fourth, fifth favorite this week?
Not hugely. Well, I'm not betting him or backing him, but obviously everyone gravitates over to Tommy Fleetwood when Links Golf inverted commas is in play. And of course, if you take away the fact he hasn't won, his play has been incredibly consistent of late, through this year. And I'm sure next week he's going to be incredibly popular as well, going into Portrush. Obviously, he was right up there last time at Portrush. Yeah. So he's the easy bet, isn't he? And obviously, you don't need me to tell you that bookmakers' odds are driven by the volume of money. So everyone who's now getting into, I'm going to have a bet on golf, whereas they might not normally, is going to go, Tommy Fleetwood, he's a good bet, Links Golf. So yeah, I'm sure the bookies are, as they will with sort of Shane Lowry and what have you the next couple of weeks. You get
the English tax this week. Fitz, Shane, Tommy, everyone's odds drop. So you're on Colin Morikawa this week. He's your first selection. Did Billy Foster coming on his bag for this 2-week stretch impact your decision at all, or were you always?
I'd made my decision before I had that information, so I only picked that information up obviously through today. And of course, at that point, I start thinking, well, is it a positive or is it a negative? And because he's been mucking around with caddies for so long now, Colin Morikawa, that you sort of think, is it a problem that he doesn't seem able to settle down? So ultimately, having someone of Billy's experience on the bag got to be a plus, and we saw only 2 months or so ago, we saw JT Justin Thomas win when Joe Greiner popped up on his bag for the first time when his Matt Minister was had an injury or something. So these players are good enough, and Billy Foster knows what he's doing, and he'll just let Colin Morikawa get on with it to a certain extent. He's not going to try and change his whole game and how he goes about his routine and everything. He's wise enough to know not to do that. So he could actually see it as a positive. Could this be that extra ingredient just to get him back over the line? So, but I had made my decision before I picked up on that bit of information.
I like Colin this week. I think he, the putter is an issue, obviously, and he did not putt well in Detroit. But the ball striking was obviously great, and the ball striking at the U.S. Open was obviously great. He just cannot figure out the putter right now, but maybe he'll get an easy fix with this new TaylorMade or whatever Spider. He changes his putter every single day, it seems like. But
Yeah.
I like Colin this week. I don't know if I'm going to get there, but honestly, I think 30-1 on Ludwig is really not that bad of a price. He was in the final group last year. He was a decent favorite going into Sunday and really had a poor Sunday. I know the form has not been great with him by any means after his Genesis win, which I thought a lot of people would be a massive breakthrough for him. But the ball striking's still been good. I mean, he's been gaining on approach. He's been gaining off the tee. The putter's been pretty average. Around the green's been pretty poor. But I don't know. I just think if he contended here last year at 30-1, I trust him to win if he were to get in contention or find something. So I haven't made any decisions yet, but I think 30-1 on Ludwig is pretty fair, to be completely honest.
Yeah, no, I can see where you're coming from. Obviously, he's that kind of player that if he does go and win at those odds, you'll be thinking, "Oh, I wish I hadn't missed him." But you're taking a leap in that there has been, he's obviously had a downturn, for whatever reason over the last couple of months. So you're taking a little bit of a leap on that. One of the things I've noticed, and I'm very much, if you read my columns and you'll see where I come from. I'm very much into trends on events. I lean a lot on historical trends. And this has very much been a sort of an event over it's only been a few years, obviously, at Renaissance Club, but it's been the good old-fashioned course form meets current form. Nothing too complicated. And you look at all the winners, apart from obviously the first year when there was no course form. Otherwise, they'd all had a good, strong finish, which obviously Ludwig has, as you say, but they all also had some really good form coming in as well. So, obviously, Bobby Mack last year had won in Canada a few weeks before, as we said about Xander winning at the Travelers. The first couple of winners, I think Wiesberger and Aaron Rye had both been runner-up when the Irish was played the week before. So there's been some really good solid form from these guys, the winners coming in, and obviously that's the one thing that Ludwig's missing slightly at the moment. So that's something, if anything, is going to put me off a little bit. But just coming back to Morikawa, the other thing I quite liked as well is just sort of getting a change of scenery out of the States. Obviously, every week in the States, he seems to be having a run-in with the media. And obviously, of course, the media will be there this week as well, but just maybe not, he won't be sort of quite, under the gun in the same way he is in front of the full US media, back in the States. Maybe just a change of scenery might do him good. I don't know. So
I do like the new caddy. I think we see it all the time where guys get a new caddy on the bag and they win. Zalatoris at St. Jude, Bob Mack in Canada when his dad was on the bag, Decky at St. Jude last year, his caddy couldn't even make it to the States. So I one time caddy on, I think does, that's sometimes all you need to kind of break through, to be honest. In this kind of next range, Fitz, JT, Sam Burns, Connors, is there anyone you're interested in and anyone you're backing?
Yeah, I'm on Fitz. I know you said you got your English tax and what have you mentioned a few minutes ago, but I quite like his price. Again, obviously he's got some good form at this course, and it comes back down to motivation to me because he's running out of time for the Ryder Cup, and
correct.
Probably a month ago, he was not really in the conversation, which is stupid as it sounds as a major winner. But his form was that bad that you were sort of beginning to think, well, he wasn't in the conversation, but it was looking odds on he was going to miss out. But he's started to find his game. But I mean, realistically, he's only got this week, next week. Maybe he goes back and plays the Wyndham or something, and then the playoffs really.
Which you might not make. I don't know what his FedEx Cup ranking is now.
I'm not sure exactly when the picks are going to be made. Maybe after Wentworth or something like that. So he might get to come over and play Wentworth and make a point there as well. But he's not got a lot of time. So from that point of view, he really needs to show something. And this is a course that he has shown something at before. Obviously, he comes in with his ball striking in really good good order. But the putter, which has obviously historically been a strong point, seems to have deserted him. But again, coming to some greens which are different and that he knows. I know he's not a big lover of links golf, but again, as I say, I'm not expecting some 30-mile-an-hour winds and rain this week. So I think he's going to get the calmer conditions that will probably suit him. So so I do like Fitz, and 40 to 1 for 8 places each way over here.
That's good
Sure.
price.
Do you get much each way betting over there? How much?
Yeah,
each way
so
betting
there's only 2 legal books in the United States that offer them: Bet Rivers and Bet 365. I only have access to Bet Rivers. 365 isn't in every state, but like for states where everyone basically would have access to Bet Rivers, and I think they offer 1/4 price, but it's only 1 through 6 places each way. So it still is very funny to me sometimes when I do bet each ways. People still just have no, like, I have to explain it every single time I do it to, like, what does EW mean? What does T5 each way? Like, people just don't. I'm like, dude, you basically just get a top 7 bet on your wager, but you have to bet the same amount on the outright as on the each way. Like that's it. But people still, no matter what, never get it, which is a bit unfortunate. A guy like Sam Burns, I like here. Like, I think it makes sense in a vacuum, but we haven't necessarily seen, a true I would say Sam Burns is an Americanized player. He did play really well for like 1 round last year at the Open, but I think he's in a different category than Xander, who has been great in the Open. Sam Burns makes a lot of sense, but I don't know if a guy like him can win on this course. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I like the way he's been playing of late, obviously, and he's very much played himself into the Ryder Cup contention. Probably would get a pick. I'm sure would probably get a pick if it was tomorrow. So, but yeah, he's not really travelled hugely well, has he? So so he's very much Bermuda Burns, although he's going a little bit wider than that now. Obviously in the mix at the US Open. So. Yeah, I'm not. I mean, he showed up pretty well at the Open last year, didn't he? But,
yeah, he played really well on Saturday and then shot like 80 on Sunday.
Yeah. So, I've not seen enough from him overseas yet to make me think that he's a man for this, to be honest. So
yeah, I think Hovland, I'm too concerned about the injury. I'm just not going to bet a guy who withdrew the week before. I have to say, I said it on last week's pod, I'm betting him for the next 2 weeks. I expect him to be popular. I'm not breaking any news here. But Ryan Fox, I'm on this week, and I'm on at Portrush. Just a guy that can win, who had a ton of heartbreaks on the DP World Tour, and he seemed to figure it out on the US. He's played well in Opens before. He played well at Portrush. I don't know what he finished, but I know that he fired a really low round, and he had a solid week the last time it was at Portrush. And he's just been playing some really solid golf, even after his Canada win. Top 20 at the US Open, top 20 at the Travelers. The putter's really good right now. He's a quintessential driver putter player. If Brian Campbell can win twice, Ryan Fox can win 3 times in a year. So I'm on Foxy this week.
Yeah, he's going to be very popular this next couple of weeks. A bit like we were talking about your Tommies and your Shane Lowrys and what have you. He's going to be someone that a lot of people gravitate to. He's obviously got a great links track record, and I can see him. I think is he 60 to 1 this week, something like that.
Yeah.
So, I can see if he has another decent shine this week, then he'll be all the rage next week. And I guess I get your point about if Brian Campbell can win twice, he can win 3 times. But then I also think, can Ryan Fox really win 3 times in a year? I sort of feel I've missed that boat now.
Yes, for sure. I'm definitely hopping on late. But again, New Zealand, it's basically Scotland, like same thing. So he has experience here. So I'm happy with you. Someone we're both going to be on. I don't have a massive case for him, other than I've been on him a ton this year, and people make fun of me about it. But I'm on Mav this week. A bit worried. He's an Americanized player. Rich kid from California. He's not out here struggling in the elements all the time, but he typically plays well on the coast, Torrey Pines, Pebble Beach, RSM. So he's a good win coast player, but great driver putter player. What's your case for Mav this week?
Well, you pretty much just made it with the fact that he puts really well and he seems to play really well by the coast. Well, that's because he obviously, as a kid, as you say, wealthy Californian upbringing. Obviously, he had a house on Pebble Beach and
Yeah.
what have you. So he obviously loves his coastal conditions, loves Pebble Beach. Obviously, winner at RSM, Hilton Head. Also, he's played really well at. So he's one of these guys when the water's in sight and the wind maybe blows a little bit. As I said already, I'm not spending a lot of wind this week, but and he played nicely here before as well. He's only had one start here before, but he was, I think, 15th from memory or 16th, something like that, on his one start here. And obviously, he's a much better player now than he was then, or a much more rounded player. He's had a nice rest since the US Open and the Travelers. So I expect him to be a factor in the next couple of weeks. And again, I think the big word for this week is the M word, motivation, which I said at the beginning. So obviously,
Ryder Cup.
Scotty, Rory playing their way in, of course, for next week. Coming back to Rory, I think with it being Portrush next week, I think he's going to have one eye on that. That's another reason I don't particularly like him this week, apart from the other reasons we all talked about. So it's the motivation to win this week, and obviously Fitz very much comes in that category. Morikawa just needs a win. And Mav obviously trying to get himself on that Ryder Cup radar. This would be a great, he's not won this year, obviously, since the RSM last year. So it'll be a great place for him to make his mark. So I think that's the case, really. He's motivated, he loves it by the coast, and he's obviously got the right kind of neat and tidy approach play and strong play on the greens, basically. So all his stats are just really good, aren't they?
Yeah, I feel great about Mav this week. I think he's going to be in contention and play well. I wish Harry Hall was a little bit longer off the tee. Typically that's done really well here. I know, some shorter players have played well in the past, but his form is, amazing right now. T20, T19, T6. He's just been playing really, really solid. Do you think he's in the conversation for Beth Page in my backyard?
He's potentially in the conversation, but a lot of people are, aren't they? So that's the thing. Yeah. So I think he certainly needs to win again and needs to win something decent. But I guess if he could pop up with a sort of top 10 in the Open next week and then pick up another event, go and win at the Wyndham or something like that, then he's certainly he's there's a few players like Aaron Rye. He's another one, and Matt Wallace trying to get in the conversation. I think we've got, without taking this down a Ryder Cup conversation, I'm quietly confident about our team and the strength in depth we've got. So
historically, the trends have shown that the home team just wins.
Oh, of course,
it's not even close. But But one thing I will say, the Europeans can't do we're the underdog. They can't do we're the underdog this year. No one believed in us. You have the great American side. No, it's not going to be like that in Bethpage. If you show the teams to the average person on the street, people will be like, oh, the European team's way better. So I'm very much excited for that week, obviously, in my backyard. I'm not supremely confident in the U.S., but, other than one of the greatest comebacks in sports history at Medina, the home team is absolutely dominated here, and I wish it made for better TV and drama, but we'll see if that changes this year at Bethpage.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that pairing of JJ Spawn and Brian Campbell when he gets his third win and sneaks into the team somehow.
That'll be good to see, and I'm excited for that, for sure. This kind of later range, I don't feel that strongly about anyone. I do think someone kind of elite is going to get it done this week. I know the DP guys like Rasmus Niergaard Peterson. I know you're on Simi or Spot. I don't even know how to say his name.
I've got three more actually. If you want me to quickly run you through.
Yeah, who you got?
Well, I've got Max, who I think you quite like. That's Grazeman, not Homer.
Grazeman, yes.
Max Homer's playing actually, but Max Grazeman and. He gets we saw from pretty much this time last year onwards. He got hot, didn't he? And if you look at both the times he had a really high finish, a top 3 finish or top 5 finish, he backed it up with another one in his next start. So he went back to back runner-up finishes, and he played nicely over here as well. He was 25th or something last year when he wasn't really in any kind of really strong form coming over here. So I think he travelled. I mean, I know it's completely different type of course, obviously, and not in any way, shape, or form comparable. But he travelled well when he went over to Japan for the Zozo. Yep. So he's obviously someone who's comfortable travelling overseas and playing well overseas and what have you. So, he's really strong on the greens. That's another one. That's his strength. So I can see him backing up his runner-up finish. I know it was a bit of a heartbreak for him, the playoff, and playing strongly. And Connor Syme, who you mentioned, he won a couple of starts back. And got his first DP World Tour win. So, I mean, it's a pretty simple case for him, obviously straightforward one. Of course, it's a home game for him in Scotland, so he'll be keen to impress. He was 15th here last year, so we know he can handle the setup. He's not in the Open yet, so there's 3 spots available for the highest
top
finishes.
3 non-exempt this week.
Non-exempt. And so he's not in yet, so he's got something to play for there. So there's that motivation factor again. And he's, again, it comes back to the each way thing. So over here, you can get 10 places each way, 250 to 1. So, he can sneak in with a backdoor top 10 on Sunday and maybe get that 3rd exemption for the Open. And it's a 50 to 1 winner, basically, or a good winner. So do I think he can win? Highly unlikely. No, obviously not saying he can't, because anyone can, because they're all good enough. But he's someone I can see putting in a good performance on home soil. Hopefully he missed the cut in Germany, but hopefully he's brushed off the cobwebs, if you like, from the win after a sort of bit of a celebration and what have you. And the last one, who I do actually really just sometimes you just got to go with your sneaky feelings, as it were, your gut hunches, is Nico Echeverria. He's another player who, you look at his results over the last 12, 18 months, or even 2 years back to winning Puerto Rico. Pretty much, I mean, not every single time, but pretty much every time he pitches up when water's in sight, by the sea, he plays well. Our RSM, another obvious example.
I think he played well in Mexico.
Worldwide Technology, he played well the Sony earlier in the year. So, he's another guy who plays well. And interestingly, bearing in mind there's 5 par 3s on this course, he is top of the par 3 scoring averages on the PGA Tour. And
elite par 3 player.
Yeah, and he's another really strong putter. So that's my logic there with him. So and he pops up. I mean, obviously this last 12, 18 months, he just keeps popping up with decent finishes, doesn't he?
And he's a guy you can trust to maybe get it done. I mean, he's shown.
Yeah, that's it. You could actually see him winning, couldn't you? You obviously saw off JT and what have you out the Zozo. So you could actually see him winning this. So yeah,
I think my friend Kyle will kill me if I don't bet Martin Kuvra with him. Yeah. So I know he's been playing unbelievably well. He's long off the tee, and he's playing really good on the DP World Tour. And I don't think there's any reason he can't. Marco Penge, I think I might just have to take an each way on this guy. He absolutely nukes it off the tees, having a good year on the PGA Tour. Data Golf loves him this week. He's 150 to 1.
He's quite well backed today, I noticed, actually. I can see he's been well backed on. We have you have Odds Checker over there in the States, don't you? I think as well. We have it over here, and you get the sea of blue when someone's been well backed. The colour changes across the board, and there's been quite a lot of money for him. So
cheeky each way play on Penge, and potentially the French dude, the young French guy. So why don't you bet on the DP World Tour?
To be honest, Brian, it's really just time. It's time and logistics. Like you, this isn't. I have to earn the corn somewhere else as well during the daytime. So historically, it was when I first started doing it, it was just a case of obviously in the evening it would be easier to watch. Our time here in the UK, obviously when the PGA Tour's on, whereas a daytime DP World Tour wouldn't be so easy to keep an eye on because you've obviously got other commitments and what have you. And then it comes down to studying the form and the stats, and there's only so much time you've got to eke out that Brian Campbell went to college in Illinois and played well here 7 years ago.
Your write-ups are great. Like, your write-ups are very detailed. Like, I enjoy reading them every single week. Everyone should write them. There's a lot of great info there. I like the trend stuff that you do. So that makes sense. You devote a lot of time into the PGA. So you can't do the Ben Coley and bet on both and have two write-ups for both.
It's I just don't have the time. That said, of course I follow the DP World Tour.
Yeah.
It goes without saying, you got to keep an eye on what's going on and what have you, and look out for the new guys who are going to gravitate over to the PGA. But I've been maybe following a little bit closer this year because or not following it more closely, but perhaps I've been making fantasy picks because I've been playing the old the DP World Tour fantasy game. And Ben and Sam have got their pod now. Which the Slice Golf podcast, where they run a fantasy league for the DP World Tour on that. So I've been having a little dabble on their fantasy league just for fun each week. So I'm sort of making some selections each week on the DP World Tour, even if I'm not posting them up there or betting them or anything like that.
Yeah, okay. So, I figured it's very, very uncommon to have an English golf bettor that doesn't like the DP. You got to support the homegrown product, and I enjoy watching it on Saturday and Sunday mornings if I'm not.
It's a good watch, undoubtedly.
So you want to talk some Isco? You down to talk some Isco?
I guess we better, haven't we? So
okay. So have you finalized your card for it, Martin?
I have, and this is an exclusive, Brian.
Okay.
Because I haven't posted it, so you're getting the exclusive on my card. Oh, I don't know if we're cutting in and out a bit there. You went a bit. So that was the thought of my Isco card, but you went a bit blurry on me all of a sudden.
Are we good? Are we good at the moment?
Lost the excitement, but you're back now. You're back now. Yeah, you're all good. Yes. So I've not posted my Isco card yet.
So what have you found out about this course? What have you found? What do you know about this new course?
Well, I know, and I'm actually going to have to refer to my notes here just so I don't get it wrong, but I know that it was designed by a guy called Chick Adams, and what
basically
I've been able to find out about
Mackenzie.
What I've been able to find out about Chick Adams is that apparently he was responsible for the infamous Seminole course over in Florida. Okay. So, but also he did a lot of course designs in Georgia. So he was the original designer. It's a par 70, which I'm sure you picked up on, just over 7,000 yards. So that obviously gives us an angle of not particularly long. It's a tree line sort of, parkland style course. So I think it's a case of plotting your way around. It seems to have a good mix of, some longer holes, but also some short holes, which potentially will probably maybe see one or two of them drivable through the week and what have you on the par fours. The redesign was done by Keith Foster, who apparently was also responsible for the Colonial redesign back when, and also Philly Cricket Club, or whatever it's called, that you went to for the Truist the other week. So that's pretty much Zoysia, bent grass on the green. So I think, from the course correlation point of view, I was gravitated towards Colonial a little bit because, just another sort of shortish par 70 or par 70. So I'm looking for players with a bit of par 70 form. And also, I think, you can't ignore that quite often the quality youngster, if you like, wins these opposite field events. Yes. So I've had a couple of those this year at bigger prices. Well, certainly one of them with Carl Phillips will be seen as like an up-and-coming quality youngster.
Yeah, we like the young guys in the alt field events. The young guys tend to do well. So that's something
and I was, I was casting my mind back to when Hovland won in Puerto Rico when he was considered the sort of a.
Even Colin at Barracuda. But we see a lot of these young
Colin Barracuda. Yeah, very good point. Yeah. So I can't ignore the obvious, which is Thorbornsen.
You're betting him.
I'm betting him. Yeah, I'm betting him. 14, 16 to 1. I was on him last week each way when he was obviously out of it, and then he produced that great run yesterday. And I'm thinking, okay, so Eagle 17, and maybe you can get to 15, 16 under par. That might be good enough to nick a place or something like that. And then of course he goes and makes a double bogey on 17, makes an absolute mess of it. And you just sort of think, it'd be much less painful if he just shot 70 and not cool, But I suppose it was still a great round. And I can't ignore him this week. I think he's the favourite, obviously, which you sort of think, well, can you bet someone at? But I remember, I think it was a couple of years ago here. Vincent Norman won. I think it was this event
He
Vincent
did.
Norman won. Again, he was really short, and he was seen as a good young player coming through, and I ignored him, and a lot of people were on him, and because I just thought he was too short for me. But I'm going with Thorbornsen. He's actually, I mean, if you look at his stats, he's good old fashioned greens in regulation. He's very good. So he's good with the irons, and so I think he could prove just have a bit too much class for a lot of them this week, to be honest. So
I can do a lot in my life. I can't do Thor at 16-1 in an alt field event. I'm not usually one to be like, oh, well, the price is short, so I can't bet it. I would rather have some more bullets. I love Thor. I've been on him a ton. I'm a believer in Thor and his talent. If he wins this week, I would obviously be disappointed, but I don't know if I could put that much capital in him. And would like to spread it out just a touch more. Grio, Roy, I'm out on them as well. I can't bet them under 20. Koiven is interesting. I would much rather bet Koiven at 25-1 than Thor at 16. I think Koiven's a very solid player. Again, we're trying to target these young guys in these alternate field events. I don't know what his game's like, but I'm sure he's talented as hell. So I like Koiven, and I like Fishburne. I like Fish this week. I think I'm almost definitely going to be betting Fish at 28-1. He was hanging around last week. He was doing some stuff. He's played well on par 70s before at Sony. He's played well on shorter courses before. I like him on the shorter wedge size, and I like him on the long wedge, long approach side, which from my research and talking to people, it's going to be a lot of really short clubs in and a lot of really long clubs in. So I like that for Fishburne. So potential on Koiven. I'm on Fishburne though. Who else are you targeting at the Isco?
Well, I like, and I think the thing also just to say about these opposite field events is you have to sort of hold your nose slightly at the odds, because you think, you have a player you like before you see the odds. You think, oh, hopefully I'll get 50-1 on them, and then they're 20-1 or whatever. And I think that's the thing with Fior. And I mean, I haven't backed him and I haven't gone with him, but I quite like Vincent Whaley, but I had to draw the line at sort of 25, 28, 33-1 or what have you. And but I like Rico Hoey. I was on Rico, so there's a little bit of not wanting to miss out. Probably, I'm not going to deny it. I was on different course, of course, but I was on Rico in this event last year when he was in the playoff. And those of us who were on him will remember it well, because he should have won in regulation, obviously, and then he lost out to Harry Hall in that sort of big playoff. So obviously completely different course, but again, he's his long game, his iron play, his accuracy, green, he's right up there on the greens hit stats. He's accurate off the tee as well, so I can see him plotting his way around a par 70. He played nicely last week, so I do like. So I've got Rico as well. Coming back to Koiven, and I'm sure you probably knows he's an Auburn guy, so that was the thing that did have me looking at him, because obviously he's got the local college connections. So that's certainly had me looking at him. But I preferred Thorbjornsen a bit shorter, and amateurs winning is pretty rare, isn't it? And he's still an amateur. I know he's got his status for next year, but he's still officially an amateur, isn't he? So
I reckon Jackson Suber will be a quite popular up tip this week. Is on the exchange. Is he coming down? I think him 70-1. I mean, he's a total boom or bust guy, but he's at least contended on a lot of different types of courses and has top 5 upside potential in regular field PGA Tour events. So I think Suber 70 is pretty straightforward, but I think it's a good price on him, to be honest.
Yeah, no, he's. I think he is quite popular. I think I've seen him picked or tipped by a couple of other people already. I'll tell you someone who I've not backed, and I will be hiding behind my sofa come Sunday evening if he is winning, and that's Cam Champ. And I've been sort of following Cam Champ off a cliff a bit of late, because I think he's one of those guys, a bit like you said earlier, when he finds his game, you want to stay on him because he's going to win. And I'll be back on possibly at the Barracuda, but definitely in Minnesota in a couple of weeks' time, where he's won before. But I just don't see this as his kind of course. I've left him off this week at 28-1 or whatever he is. So Yeah, hopefully I'm not hugely regretting that. But I've got another one. I've got one more at mid-division price, similar to the sort of Super odds, and then one flyer at big triple digits. So my mid-division guy is Will Gordon.
Okay.
Yeah, he. I didn't actually realise this, and I had to recheck this and recheck it to be certain. But I believe he apparently, from what I've seen online, he was actually born in Kentucky. So he moved to
Huge.
North Carolina when he was very, very young, apparently. But he still has some family connections in Kentucky and what have you. So I'm not saying that's going to make the massive difference, but it's a little, it's a little fillip if you like. But the other thing is that obviously he's now in the comfort zone again, having got his card, or not in the comfort zone, but the pressure's off, if you like. So he should be able to freewheel it a bit. He's got a reasonable track 70 record. The Travellers, obviously, he was played really well at a couple of years back, or a few years back. So another sort of par 70 layout. So I quite like him this week. And do you want to know who my flyer is?
Well, you know that if you're triple digits at the Isco, you have to be absolutely terrible at golf. So I'm curious who this is going to be.
Well, fairly terrible at golf at the moment is the key phrase. But
Okay.
Hayden Buckley. So
Okay.
here's my case for Hayden Buckley. He's a bit of a god on par 70s. Or at least Sony, Charles Schwab. He's got a top 5 there. Where else? I've got. So I made a couple of other notes here. Where else? Sony, Colonial, and he was actually, believe it or not, he even was 14th in the US Open on a par 70 a couple of years back, 2 or 3 years back. So he does like a par 70 layout. He went to college, and you'll probably hold me up on my geography here, but obviously the States is such a huge country that even if there's a remote connection, I'll bring it together. Born in Tennessee, which I believe neighbors Kentucky.
Totally
possibly.
Close enough. Very close.
Yeah.
Like totally
college in Missouri. And this
Yeah.
is the kind of homework I do, Brian. I Googled the distance between Missouri University in Columbia, Missouri, to Louisville, Kentucky, and apparently it's about a 5-hour drive. So
that's nothing.
Which is nothing in the States, is it?
Nothing in the States. Yeah.
So he's got that comfort there. And if you look at his opposite field events, he popped up at the in the aforementioned Myrtle Beach out of nowhere and was 7th.
Yeah.
So he placed at Myrtle Beach.
I like that.
Barracuda last year, he placed as well. So I can see him pop in, for want of a phrase, and 150 to 1.
Honestly, that's a good case. I'm not gonna lie, for a guy 170 to 1 in this field, that's a guy's round. Tom Valiant, John Pack. You know what? Kevin Velo. Add Kevin Velo to my card. I like Kevin Velo this week.
Yeah.
He's been doing things. I've seen his name on leaderboards enough for him to be 150 to 1 in this field. So I'm on Kevin Velo. Add Kevin Velo to my card. 10 places each way. I'm on Kevin Velo this week. Martin, it was great having you on. It was a great pod. Great research. We got 2 lovely events this week. I'm curious which one you'll be more excited to track if you got a guy in the mix.
I'll be tracking them both.
You won't have to call the course to see where people are at. You could just pull it up on your phone on Bet365 and know exactly what everyone's doing.
Thank you, Brian. And before I let you go, very, very quickly, because I can't let you go, we talked about my trip over there. Yeah. I know you popped over here, didn't you? A little while ago. Spent a bit of time in good old London town. So saw the sights and what have you. So I was curious how much Cockney rhyming slang you picked up while you were over here, Brian. Have you got any?
Honestly, no. I really didn't. I like the bloody chap. I like I reckon. People say I reckon a lot more over there. But honestly, towards the end of the week, I didn't want to disrespect anyone and speak and say something out of turn or speak in my accent or anything. I had a more respect. Not that I didn't have a respect for the culture, but I didn't want to cross anybody. But no, I didn't pick up anything unbelievable over there.
Do you know what Cockney rhyming slang is?
Cockney rhyming slang. No, I don't know what that means.
So it's when something rhymes to give you the phrase of what you're looking. So I'll give you an example. If I said you were going to have a butcher's hook at the leaderboard,
Okay.
that would mean you were going to have a look at the leaderboard.
A butcher's hook.
Butcher's hook is a
Okay.
look. You see? If I said when Brian Campbell hikes it into the trees and his drive comes back out again, that I don't Adam and Eve it,
Okay.
I don't believe it. You see, so if you're going to be a true Londoner, you got to get your Cockney rhyming slang, mate, governor. Okay.
So you basically just say something that doesn't mean the word, but it rhymes with the word.
Exactly, and then you abbreviate it as well. So you can have like, if I say I'm going to give you a call on the dog and bone, it means I'm going to give you a call on the phone.
Okay.
But it gets abbreviated to I'm going to give you a call on the dog.
Okay.
So yeah,
I honestly, the crew I was hanging out with, I wasn't getting any good slang like that.
Well, next time you communicate with them, if you have a meeting or whatever,
yeah,
Teams hook up or whatever, just
I will say I'll call you on the dog and bone.
Yeah, get them on the dog and bone and tell them next time you're over here, you want to go out for a ruby with them.
A ruby.
A ruby is a Ruby Murray, based after a famous singer called Ruby Murray, which is a curry.
Okay.
So you're going out for a ruby next time you're over this way, which is a curry.
Amazing. So, I have to ask you, are you seeing Oasis?
I am not, unfortunately, and I wish I was. And I just didn't get the tickets in time. I've got a really
so
good
what
friend
show would be closest to you that you could go to?
Manchester would be the nearest to me. So
I think I'm gonna go. Should I go?
Yeah, should absolutely, if you can get a ticket, because I mean you can. I'm keeping an eye on one of the official resale sites, and stuff does pop up on there, and if I can get something for sort of, I think about 300 quid would be my ceiling.
Yeah,
I don't think I would want to pay 500. So
unfortunately, the tickets since they first performed have gone up in the States.
Yeah.
So I should have known that. I was like, because my buddy and I want to go. I like Oasis. I'm not like the biggest fan of the world, but I like Oasis. We should have known we got to get them before they play their first show, because now everyone wants to go. But I think I would have to pay like $450, $500 to go. But whatever. Yeah. I don't. That's enough. I'll pay that. I don't care. Yeah. I would love to see.
Well, get a winner this week. Make $500, and that'll pay your ticket.
Yeah, we need
back $10 on Hayden Buckley, and you can buy 3 tickets.
And Kevin Velo and Hayden Buckley in Kentucky, and we'll have enough money to go see Oasis. I'll be quite chuffed for that. Quite chuffed.
Absolutely. If Hayden Buckley wins, I might fly over and join you and go to the gig over there.
You're in. If Hayden Buckley wins, you're coming to MetLife, and we'll go see Oasis, and we'll have a proper night. We'll see everyone next week for the Open Championship. Again, thank you to Martin for coming on. It was a great show, and I hope everyone enjoyed it. Gave out a lot of great information. Everyone have a great night, and we'll see everyone next week.